Hello and welcome to the Temple Mount podcast. I am Shogun. Joining me today is my friend BeautifulDudeMissile. We're going to talk about dreams and lucid dreaming and other subjects related to the dream world. Make sure you join the Temple Mount Discord server. You can find us on Discord or just Google Temple Mount Discord server. That being said, welcome, BeautifulDudeMissile. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I just had a ham and cheese omelet, so I'm a little bloated. But it's an all right day.
Sounds good.
If you just give me a minute, just give me a quick second here. Okay, I'm good. I just had to grab my vape. It was outside of my mic range. Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
Well, you said you wanted to talk about dreams tonight and lucid dreaming, and that's a topic I've been meaning to cover for years. Somehow never got around to it. So, I guess question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead. You can ask the question first. Then I'll go.
I was just gonna say, like, what is your take on what dreams are? If you have a theory about that, like, what are dreams?
So, in general, I try not to be too much of a conclusion drawer as far as as far as topics and things that can't exactly be directly measured or verified. I try not to draw conclusions, and I try to leave the possibilities open, right? But I do think that there is I would wager that there is a deep spiritual significance to dreams. So one thing I find interesting that I know we've talked about before is you have people getting really excited for this whole VR thing, right? And I find that a little funny and a little bit sad because if you read a lot about lucid dreaming and sort of astral projection and all these sort of different dream states, the stories you hear sound way more interesting than anything I think VR will be able to do anytime soon, and perhaps ever. So, yeah, I do think it's a spiritual thing, but I don't necessarily have a grasp or an assumption about what the true nature is in its totality.
Right. And what about lucid dreaming? How would you define lucid dreaming?
So, lucid dreaming, I do question whether or not there is a difference between lucid dreaming and astral projection in like a mechanical sense. They seem to be very similar in terms of how you in terms of how you can train yourself to have one, right? So a lot of times a lot of the techniques that people talk about for having an out-of-body experience are the same techniques that can work for having a lucid dream. So, but I guess I would define the difference as a lucid dream is sort of a less defined conscious space, in the sense that it's manipulatable, it's moldable. You know, if you're in a lucid dream, you can manifest things as well as setups, manipulate the situation, right? And from what I've read, there's a common thing people talk about that this sort of idea. Oh, don't tell characters in your dreams that they're just dream characters, because they'll freak out. And I do find that a bit silly, because it's sort of a mind space, right? So whatever you think's going to happen is probably what's going to happen, you know? But the other thing I would probably say is a major aspect of a lucid dream is from what I've researched, people describe it generally as being on a higher level of visceralness in terms of how real the experience feels compared to something like a normal dream. Because when you're in a dream and you're like seeing these things, but you're not seeing them in this very clear cut very vivid and detailed way that you see it with your eyes. It's sort of like it's almost like a filter, right? There's like a filter in front of it, like a sort of a dusty screen or something, right? And so, you're not seeing it as clearly, and that's one thing I've heard about lucid dreams and out of body experiences is that apparently they do feel a lot more clear and real than just a regular dream.
And also the defining feature, I think, is that you know that you're dreaming, right? You realize that you're dreaming.
Sorry, that's the sort of most obvious, most common definition. Yeah. I sort of forgot that. I was focusing more on the sort of visceralness of
it. Reality, vividness of it. And so have you been... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, because the sort of visceralness is the thing I'm interested in, right? Because my dreams have always been very strange and very out there. Not inherently in a bad way, but the way I say it is I have good weird dreams, I have bad weird dreams, I have dreams that are just weird, but I never really have dreams that aren't weird, So
right.
if I could have a good dream that is weird but also very real feeling, that would be such a cool experience to have. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is a cool experience when you have vivid, very realistic dreams. There's also some techniques that you can use. For example, they talk about finding your hands. So if you find yourself in a lucid dream, you lift your hands up in front of your eyes and you look at your hands, and then you look at the environment around you, and then you look back at your hands and you look at the environment around you and back at your hands. And apparently by doing that, it makes the dream much more concrete and much more like vivid and realistic, and kind of like grounds you in the dream. So that's just one technique. But
one thing I feel, I sort of feel a somewhat of a calling towards this topic, because my middle name means I awake, right? So, but not only that, there's a technique for inducing a lucid dream called reality checks. Have you heard of this? Do you know what this is?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those unaware, that the idea is you sort of train yourself to have these habits in your waking life that where you basically do repetitive tasks to verify that reality that you're awake, right? So one of them could be like poking your hand whenever you think to do it, right? Or counting your fingers, making sure you have all your fingers, right? And a very famous one is called the dream dot technique, right? Where you draw a dot on your hand, right? And then whenever you think of it, you turn your hand over and you look at it, right? And the interesting thing is, I have like a freckle in the dead center of one of my hands, so I kind of think of it as like, oh, I've already got one, And the sort of idea of this technique is you'll train yourself to do this habitually so much that when you're dreaming, you'll do it, and you'll say you're doing the finger counting. You'll notice that you don't have all your fingers, or that your hand is sort of a nebulous shape, sort of like when you see like AI generated images of hands, you'll notice the sort of inconsistency, and then you'll realize you're dreaming.
Right. And you can, try and put your finger through your palm. That's what I do. You like slide your finger right through your hand, and if you're dreaming, it'll go through, and if you're not, it won't.
Yeah.
And so then you train yourself to do these checks, and then eventually you'll start doing them when you're asleep, and then you'll start becoming lucid. Yes. So how much success have you been having with lucid dreaming so far?
So I have my own technique that I've developed that just seems to be I don't know if it's physiologically driven, but I've gotten right up to the precipice, like right to the door, so to say, and I just get freaked out when I start turning the handle, right? So my technique is I had noticed in the past few, because I've been trying to have one of these experiences since I was in middle school, right? So over the many years of practicing, what I found is that if I can manage to fall asleep while I'm on my back, because I've never slept on my back, I always sleep on my side or my stomach. I do a little bit of tossing and turning, but I've never slept on my back. But if I can manage to fall asleep on my back, which is very difficult to do, I almost consistently get into what out of body experiencers call the vibration stage. Um, so the way I would describe this is it's at least for me is that is there's sort of a moment where I start to enter sort of like a trance, right? Where something to do with my focus. I sleep with a fan, and when when I'm in this sort of certain conscious space, a sort of place between awake and asleep, if I focus on my fan, then I start to feel this like a pulsing sensation, right? And it comes in waves, like a whoosh 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 break, whoosh 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 break. The thing about it is, I think if you've only ever read about these things, then you might not have the understanding of just how visceral they actually are, right? Because it's a very physical sensation when you're close to having an out of body experience or a lucid dream, and I think that that is, at least for some people, myself included, sort of a little bit freaky, and you know, if you freak out too much, you just sort of wake up. So that's sort of the wall I'm at right now, is getting to that door enough times that I can sort of work up the composure to actually open it up and step through. But yeah.
Yeah, it's when you first start having lucid dreams or out of body experiences, it like startles you and you wake up. But I've realized they're like soap bubbles. You have to be very like delicate not to like pop it and wake up. So there's a specific way to just kind of relax and go along with it so that it doesn't fracture. But have you had out of body experiences? Like
no. Again, got into the door. Still have to work myself up for it a couple more times, but I'm close. What I would like to do when I get there is first time, do a little fly around of the Earth, you know, see what's going on, you know. Second time, I've heard space isn't actually that interesting, so I'd like to go see some of the, I guess what the best term would be, like other planes, you know. I've read the entire Journeys Out of the Body trilogy by Robert Monroe, and he gives some sort of a map on the places he's visited. He sort of describes the different sort of layers of the sort of astral plane, or whatever you want to call it, right? So I'd like to go see some weird shit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, out of body experiences are great, and I mean they're determined by like the way that you lift out of your body out of the bed and then like float around into the immediate environment, and you can float down the street and float around in a disembodied state. And
what's interesting is from some I've heard this theory from someone else in the server. I think they might have been, I don't remember what their name was, but they suggested that perhaps when people get close to having these types of experiences and then they can't quite make it happen, he suggested perhaps that's like a safety mechanism. You're not quite ready to see this yet, so you're gonna need to.
Could be.
It's just a theory, but I think there was at least an interesting. There's something to it. I don't know if I believe it, but there's definitely something to consider there.
Yeah. So were there any other aspects of lucid dreaming or dreams in general you wanted to get into?
Yes. So I would like to talk about at least have sort of a back and forth about what your thoughts are on the sort of spiritual significance of dreams. Because while I've never had a lucid dream yet, like I said, I've gotten to the door. But I have had dreams that are very, very strange in like a really positive way, that had something, like they were real enough that I would wake up after these dreams and I would be thinking about it for like an hour after I woke up, like, what was that? You know, that was crazy. And I do think I think the reason it seems so significant to me is because it almost seems like it's trying to communicate something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dreams sometimes do communicate something or have a interpretable meaning. I think dreams can be more real than waking life. Like they can be more vivid, more concrete. I've had lots of lucid dreams, and when you lucid dream, it's really fun because you can do things like fly or do magic, like throw fireballs or whatever you want to do. You can practice those skills and have fun adventures. And it's an amazing ability that we have. It's like better than virtual reality, just like you said. And I'm not sure that dreams are just all in our head. I think it's possible we connect to like a community uh, spirit world where there's actually other spirits and even other people inhabiting it, but we don't really know. It's the astral, the umbral realm, like on the other side of the looking glass. And if you ever manage to get out of your body and an out of body experience, try flying through a mirror. Because if you have an out of body experience or a lucid dream and then you go through a mirror, then you go into like the far astral realm and it's like really crazy. So it's just something to consider if you ever make it out of your body.
Well, I'm sort of a budding sort of wannabe artist. I have sort of creative desires, right? And I find that if you're looking for inspiration, there's not any well as deep as that, as dreaming,
I agree.
What I find funny, you mentioned the throwing fireballs thing, and I find sometimes I sort of wonder if there's sort of archetypical, like Carl Jung talks about like archetypes, and I wonder if sometimes I see these sort of archetypes in our world, right? And one example of that in this conversation is what I find interesting is if you think of like the archetypical like vision of a wizard, what are they wearing, right? It depends on the interpretation, but a lot of times, very stereotypically, they'll be wearing some sort of robe, right? And so there's sort of a connection there of like wizard in robe, person sleeping in robe, wizards shooting fireballs, you shooting fireballs in your dream. You get what I'm saying? You get the connection I'm making here?
Yeah.
It seems to be sort of a little bit
dream.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Well, they call it dream magic or dream yoga. It's like all these special arts you can develop in the dream world, like summoning objects or banishing objects or summoning people, contacting certain people in the dream, flying, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, the flying is super fun. I've managed to do that even asleep. I guess I was just having a dream where flying was just a mechanic of that dream context, right? But what was interesting about it was that it was sort of a physical sensation. So I'm not sure if you've ever seen like Dragon Ball, but in Dragon Ball they describe the way they fly is they have like this spiritual ki energy, right? And what they do is they make their ki lighter than air so that they float up, right? And what was interesting about these dreams where I'm flying is there's this very physical sensation of like there's this energy coursing around my body, and if I can like manipulate it and I push it, if I push it down below me, it like propels me upward, right? So it's very strange, but it's a lot of fun,
Yeah, flying is a blast, and there's lots of different ways to do it. You can swim through the air, you can fly like Superman, you can go into lotus position and like float around. Different styles.
Yeah, what I would like to ask you, because you would, you'd at least have a enough knowledge base about the topic to give a fair opinion, or at least an educated opinion. The thing is, can you still hear me? Sorry, my computer just went to sleep
I can
mode.
still hear you.
Yeah. So I've seen. So you're a sort of very Christian man. I'm not so much, but I've seen a lot of Christian people describe astral project or out of body experiences and lucid dreams as somehow something like demonic, right? That you're doing some form of of like magic or whatnot. And yeah, so what's your take on that? Do you think it's a bad
Um,
thing? Or...
no, I don't think it's a bad thing, and I don't think it's anything demonic or occult. Like, we naturally have the ability to exist in multiple dimensions, and we dream, and learning to lucid dream or learning to out of body experience. I don't think there's anything negative about that. However, you can encounter demonic spirits in those states. So, like, if you go into a sleep paralysis state, or sometimes if you fly around out of your body, you might encounter like entities, which are sometimes like shadowy entities and stuff. But uh, I don't think it's dangerous. Some people think, oh, you're going to get separated from your body and your body's going to die or something like that. No, you'll wake up in your body every time. And yeah, I don't consider it anything morally wrong. I love lucid dreams. I love dreaming. I love out of body experiences. They're
Well,
very cool experiences.
the thing is that I think people have a hesitancy towards it because it's so liberating, right? Uh, like we have these sort of mundane lives where we get up, we go to a 9 to 5, we come home and maybe watch some awful like television programming, and then we go to bed and do the whole thing the next morning, right? And if you have these sort of skills, you can have wonderful sorts of adventures. And as far as the shadow people thing it goes, I have had sleep paralysis before, and yeah, that is some freaky stuff. I was doing my technique, or I was either doing my technique or I had just been really tired and had happened to have laid on my back, and I started to realize that I couldn't move, but I was still awake, and there was like this very strong feeling. It wasn't like a visual thing because my eyes were closed. There's this very strong feeling that there was something in my closet, right? There was some sort of being in my closet, and it wanted to come up behind me and stab me, or something, right? And I just remember like trying to yell for help, and then after a few attempts, eventually sort of managing to whimper out like, "Ah," right? And then that sort of waking me up, and then thank God. But yeah, it's very freaky. There's definitely some, I think a lot of people tend to trivialize these things. It's like, oh, it's just a dream, right? But I tend to think at least it's a possibility that there's something more going on here. Because when you sort of encounter these shadow beings, it is very freaky. It's a scary time for certain.
Yeah, there's a documentary called The Entity that I've shared. I can post it again, and it talks about how people all over the world encounter the entities around sleep paralysis, and it's like, yeah, it's not just a dream, it's like a weird spiritual thing. But at the same time, when you are in sleep paralysis, that's the best time to have an out of body experience. So when you're in sleep paralysis, just focus your intention and your will and your visualization into floating up and out of your body, and you'll be able to do that if you're in the sleep paralysis state. So it's actually a good state to be in because it's your launch pad into an out of body experience. But if you stay in the sleep paralysis state, then yeah, like shadowy figures come and like stand around your bed and stuff, and it gets all freaky.
I kind
I
of wonder.
posted a documentary there about it if anyone's interested. General chat.
I kind of wonder if it's like if they're sort of like demonic guardians or something. Like they're there to prevent you from getting out and getting information that they don't want you to have. You know? What do you think of that?
Right. Possibly. I think, they exist in the spirit realm. And when we're in sleep paralysis, we're half in the physical realm and half in the spirit realm. So they can come and interact with us because we're in like a liminal space where we're crossing the boundary between our world and theirs. And so they can come and interact with us. I'm not sure why they always seem to be sinister and like evil, but that's the way it is. And
Um,
people often say that if they call on the name of Christ or call on the name of Jesus, that's the only way to end the sleep paralysis experience for them. But a lot of people say that works.
I've heard that around, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
One thing I find I did a little bit of, like, the slightest amount of research on this, and by research I mean looking for like Reddit testimonials on this topic. But Terrence McKenna once said that if you've smoked DMT before, and you can have a dream, um, where you smoke it, and then the experience happens in the dream, and he described it as being this exact same experience. It's just that you didn't you happened in a dream, but then the dream jumped springboarded into a DMT experience, right? And I went to see if anyone else had this experience, and some people claimed to have had it. Other people's claimed that like something happened, but it definitely wasn't the same degree of intensity, right? I know that I had a dream where I like vaped some DMT or something, and all that happened was like it was like in a vape form, and when I would hit it, the everything would turn purple, and like it's like half of sometimes like things would disappear. So it'd be like I'd be looking at a person, and like the left half of their body doesn't exist. So I don't know to what degree that there's truth to that, but perhaps if you have taken it before in real life, it could open some neural pathways that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And I've had a few experiences of using drugs in dreams and getting various levels of effects from them. I remember smoking salvia in a dream made me have like a full blown like journey into some other dimension, which was cool. But yeah, and people believe that DMT is naturally associated with dreaming. That when we dream, it's partly from releasing DMT that creates the experience. Seems pretty likely to me.
Well,
Um,
a
In
piece of
my
evidence.
opinion, man, it's
Oh,
all fun and games until someone's actually possessed.
yeah, and I mean, I'm not sure there's much literature about people becoming possessed from smoking DMT, but presumably it could happen.
well, the thing is, I've read a lot of like trip reports, right? And there does seem to be there's like a whole lingo associated with this sort of thing on in terms of the way people discuss it on places like Erowid. They've got terms like they've got their own terminology. For example, there's the term hyperslap, where you do it too many times in you sort of like disrespect it, and it like punishes you, so you take it too often or something like that. But I don't want to stay on that too long, but I will say an interesting thing about DMT is that people describe waking the experience ending as very similar to when you wake up from a dream, right? Because there's like different techniques for increasing dream recall, but generally for a lot of people, when you wake up and you move, that seems to set off like a process of like garbage collection in your brain, right? Whereas if you sort of stay still after you start to wake up, you can apparently capture more details, right? But that fading away does seem to suggest that there might be a connection between these two
Yeah.
different states.
The most important way to build dream recall is just to buy a nice journal and pen or pencil and keep it beside your bed so you don't have to get out of bed. And then as soon as you wake up, just grab that journal and write down everything you can remember every single day. And even if you can't remember anything, just like rack your brain for 5 or 10 minutes trying to remember something, and then just write couldn't remember anything. And if you could just remember like a little, whatever little bit you can remember, and over time you'll remember more and more until you start feeling like pages every morning, and your dreams become more and more detailed and you remember them better. But the dream journal is
Now,
pretty much the most important part.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least pay some lip service to nightmares, um because I think it's sort of like the sort of you can sort of get yourself into these places sometimes when you're asleep, where it's like this sort of aesthetics that you could picture that hell would be like. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you can get into nightmares and dark astral dimensions, and that's why it's really great to learn like dream magic. Because, like, if there's like a zombie in my dream, I can like throw a fireball and explode it, or like rip it apart with my mind, or something like that. So you start learning techniques like that, or just to fly away. If there's something scary happening, you can just fly away.
Or teleport or something. Yeah, I had this
Yeah.
this one dream, if I could talk about for a moment. That
Sure.
where I was in this compound. It was like, it sort of seemed like somewhere between a jail and like a psych ward, right? So there was like this eating area, right? This like cafeteria type area with like red walls. It was pretty big, and there was the only door out was covered with these iron bars. And so they weren't door. It wasn't like a jail door where there was iron bars, but then some of the bars were a door. It was just barred off. So, and I remember the sort of plot of the dream was that there were these people who were stuck in this building. They were stuck in this sort of cafeteria room. They were going a little bit mad, and the only solution they had to escape was they couldn't escape, so they had to like manifest a new being into existence outside of the gate, and then hope that thing could get them out somehow. And I had that theme in another dream later on, so I found that theme very very interesting and very sort of, I think, poetic, because I sort of think of it as like that's sort of our situation in a way. We're in this world. It's not great for a lot of people, and it doesn't really seem like we can get out on our own, you know?
Right. So dreams have lots of different levels. Sometimes we get interpretations out of them that tell us about our daily lives. Sometimes we get lucid, and then we can have these adventures and fly around and do whatever we want in the dream. Sometimes we get into the astral realm, where we're actually in a spiritual other dimension that might have other entities or people living in it. And there's even more advanced, like Carlos Castaneda wrote a book called The Gates of Dreaming, and he describes some like advanced techniques. Like, one of them is you memorize what position you're going to bed in. So you lie down on your right side. So you have to memorize that. Then you have to get lucid. And then in your lucid dream, while you're already asleep, you lie down on your right side, the same position that you're in real life. And you go to sleep inside your dream. And then you basically go to a dream within a dream. And I've only done that one time, but it's crazy. It makes you feel like you're dreaming for like weeks at a time.
Oh,
It's
really?
like, yeah, is one of the craziest things I've experienced, was like going to sleep in a dream in the same position that you're already sleeping, and you go into this like super dream. So it's just something to consider if you ever find yourself lucid and you remember, try and lie down and go to sleep when you're already in a dream.
Is there multiple layers to that? Could you do it a third time and dilute time even slower?
I don't know. You could try. I just know that like when I woke up from that dream, I was like literally exhausted because the dream had been so long. I was like, man, I feel like I've been dreaming for like a month. Like, it was crazy.
Well, presumably, if time felt slower, right? I guess the only way to interpret that into physicality would be that that must mean that your brain's going like a mile a minute, right? To process all of this within
Yeah.
the hour or so that you're sleeping, right?
Something like that, yeah.
That might actually not be a good thing to do too often. You might just tucker yourself out a little bit too much, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely worth at least one try.
Right.
So
right.
I think we'll keep this to a relatively short episode. Did you have anything else that you wanted to cover today?
No, I think that's basically everything I more or less wanted to say. Give me like a second.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're basically good, but if anyone listening has anything they'd like to say, I wouldn't
Yeah,
mind.
if anyone heard the presentation or the interview, if you have any questions or comments, feel free.
What was he saying? I just joined in.
We won't be able to fill you in because we just finished, but we're just talking about dreams and lucid dreams and stuff. But that being the case, thank you very much, Dude Missile. Appreciate you coming on the show. We can do a series about dreams and just let this be the first episode.
Well, that would be fun.
Yeah, I think that was good for an introduction. And just make sure you join the Temple Mount Discord server. You can find us on Discord or Google Temple Mount Discord server. Join up and keep an eye on the announcements channel. We'll have more podcasts coming up every day as we go into the future. Thanks very much.